Hi. As soon as I've had to public speak a lot, but as soon as you're put into a new environment, your heart is gonna fall out of your butt. And Jake the other week was like, I'm gonna vomit in front of all of you, and I'm like, yeah, I can feel it. Even then, I was like, I feel that for when I have to speak, I'm gonna feel like I'm gonna throw up. I'm Nicolette, for those of you who don't know me. I am going to share a snippet of my life testimony because I feel like I can't share my word unless you know who I am and what I'm doing here. So I'm not from Binghamton. For a period of time, I went to BU. That's how I got here. But for a period of time, people had no idea what my situation was. They were like, I was like, I'm back from summer break, everyone. And they're like, you weren't here the whole time? And I'm like, no, I wasn't, I'm sorry. So I was raised Catholic, and through this church, God saved my life, and I will never be the same, and that's why I'm here. So I came here for school, and Julia, Tinker, and I actually went to high school together. And also, a fun fact, the Bates family grew up down the street from me. So I'm from 2 hours away. I live an hour. My family lives an hour and a half north of the city, and I came here and I met the Bates, and they're like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "Oh, an hour and a half north of the city." And they're like, "Where?" And I'm like, "Orange County." And they're like, "Where?" Montgomery. And they're like, "Where?" I was like, "Off of River Road." And they're like, "We lived on River Road for 18 years." And I'm like, "That's really weird. You people are crazy." So Julia got saved probably a year before I did, and she came here because of Jake, and she's like, "Hey, you want to come to church with me?" And I was like, "Sure, I don't know anyone in this town, and let's do this." So I came here with another girl from my high school who also went to BU, and basically my mind blew up because being raised Catholic and then coming to this church kicks you. And they're like, "Here you go, this is what Christianity is actually all about." And I was like, okay, this is really cool. So I've been here for about 5 years. It'll be 5 years, I think, in February. And I can tell you that I would have never dreamt that I'd be living in Binghamton, that I'd be engaged at 23, that I'd be leading some teenagers to the Lord. What does that even mean? I definitely would have never thought that I'd be in church on a Wednesday night, and then speaking at church on a Wednesday night. I would be like if you told me 5 years ago, "Nicolette, you're going to be speaking in front of 40 people, and you're going to be preaching the word," I've been like, I can't do the first and second readings. That's for Julia Tinker's dad, because her dad actually used to do the readings at Mass. I would have been like, I'm not going to stand in front of the Mass and do that. So So that's why I'm here. There's more details, but I really felt that if I didn't tell you where I came from, then what's the point of me being up here? So if you want to learn more about my testimony, and just so you know, even if you've been a Christian your whole life, I've heard this a million times, people are like, my testimony's not cool. I was a Christian my whole life. And I'm like, you're the goal. You're literally the goal. So never feel afraid to share your testimony, because it's gonna reach someone, and it's gonna be really, really cool for them. Even if they're like, yeah, I've known God my whole life and I've known nothing else. They're gonna be like, that's crazy. Yeah. So I left my Bible at home, so I have my phone, and I never do this, but I have a feeling my mom's gonna call me, because my mom calls me at really inappropriate times. So if my phone starts vibrating, I guarantee you it's gonna be my mom. So when Pastor Chris asked me to do this, I was like, okay. And he's like, just share a testimony and then back it up with scripture. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I know the structure of the sermon. Okay, so what I'm going to share is basically how I overcame almost everything up until this point. Closer to my mouth. I don't know how to hold a microphone. I never did theater or show choir or anything. So if you go to Matthew 6:25, I think this word is really simple, and but I still hope that it reaches you in a different way, because I can literally share testimony and testimony after this verse. Okay, I'm going to read the whole thing till the end of the chapter. And it's going to be long, but actually think about it. Even if you've read this like 10 billion times, just actually listen to it. So I'm reading out of NIV. Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or stow away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon, in all of his splendor, was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow and is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. So this was the first verse that I ever had memorized what the actual verse name was with the words, because I'll be honest, reading is really hard for me, and having the diligence to read scripture every day and to try to memorize it is the biggest challenge for me. And I don't know why, but I read this verse one day and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I was in college, so I got saved my freshman year, and immediately after I got words from God. I didn't know it at the time, but you should go for nursing. And I'm like, that's hilarious, because I hate needles, hate blood, I hate being in a hospital, and that's crazy. But then literally a month after I got saved, I find myself in my dorm room Googling different types of nursing, and I'm like, this is really weird. Yeah. So I found my life trajectory in an instant. And I did not know what I wanted to be. You could have told me that I was going to be a person who digs holes all day. I would have been like, that sounds right. I don't know, sure. So junior year, I didn't get into nursing school, because for BU, once you're in the school, you have to apply to the nursing school, and I didn't get in. And I'm like, okay, this is not what I wanted to do. And immediately, as for every college student, and if you've been to college or have been to high school, you're like, what am I doing with the rest of my life, because I don't know. And society tells you that you need to panic, pretty much. Either you choose, you start your major program at the beginning of your junior year, or you're flunking out, you're done. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do, freaking out. I'm joining all of my non-saved college friends with freaking out about my life trajectory. And then I read this verse, and I was like, oh my gosh, it doesn't matter. Literally, this was the biggest revelation of my life to this point. Because you're trying to get into college, and you're trying to do the right thing, and you're trying to get all these good grades, and you're freaking out over this one quiz, and you're like, if I don't pass this quiz, then my life is over. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, it actually literally doesn't matter. And then I looked at the bottom of the verse, and it says, but first, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. And this was working in my life, and I didn't understand what seeking his kingdom really meant. So I was like, okay. So when I got saved, I came here first, and then I went to basic at BU. And I started in the fall, and by November, Bill and Christy came to me, and they're like, we want you to lead basic, because there's no other BU students who are here. Because seriously, it was a generational thing. It was Katrina, Jake, Rachel Haller, literally everybody was graduating, and then it was you're the only person left. It was literally me and one other student left, and we're like, okay. And they're like, yeah, we want you to do it. And I'm like, I don't know the Bible at all. I've been saved for 6 months. I just found out who Jesus was in reality. And you're asking me to lead people who probably have known Jesus their whole life through college. And I'm like, that's crazy, but I prayed about it, and I'm like, I'm just gonna wing it. So by the time that I became a junior, I had been president of Basic for 2 years, and running a ministry that is not fruitful initially is really trying, and trying to lead college students to what the correct path is like the worst. I can say that because I was a college student, love you guys, but it was like really, really emotionally trying. But then I'm like, okay, I'm seeking first this kingdom. I'm putting the kingdom first. So I had like all these tests coming up, and I'm like, I'm just gonna put all this away, and I'm gonna pray in my shower. And I prayed in my shower, and I'm like, I'm just gonna read the word. I like had barely studied. I had a test, and I studied for like 2 hours, and I'm like, I don't even care anymore. I can do whatever. And this was like, once this happened, I like shared it at Basic because I was freaking out. I got 100 on this test that I had barely studied for, and like there was a question that I wrote, it was like short answer, and it was like physically wrong. And my teacher was like, check. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this way more often. The less effort I have to actually put in, better. But it's because I sought first the kingdom. That was my priority. I was like, if I'm being put into this ministry, this is my priority, and everything else has to fall secondary. So I put all of my time into it. I put literally like a ridiculous amount of time into it, and it was fruitful by the time that I graduated, and I really didn't think that was going to happen, but there were people that I was able to hand it off to once I graduated, and then I ended up staying here anyway, so I was like still part of Basic. But I took the opportunity, and I ran with it, and coming out on the other side and being like, yeah, you know what major I major in college actually doesn't matter. What matters is what's eternal and not what's temporary in my life right now. And I have minimal life experience at 23, but apply this to your own life. I encourage you. So, yeah. Okay. So, what actually is seeking the kingdom? And you can put your own definition to it, but ultimately it's family. It's doing what God's calling you to do and living in what God's purpose is for your life today. So, if you're at this point in your life and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do this, I don't know when I'm going to do that, I feel like I'm doing the same thing every day, just try putting the kingdom first for like a minute. If you're like, wow, I've been stuck in this rut and I don't really understand what to do and I'm just going to wallow in self-pity and cry, why don't you try like asking the McDaniels if they need help cleaning one day and be like, yeah, I'll clean this one bathroom. Maybe that'll help you. Who knows? Or if someone comes to you and they say, oh, we need help with Sunday school. Instead of you being like, I don't have time, I don't want to give up my Sunday service, kids really annoy me. I was like, when Rachel Jenks asked me to teach Sunday school, I was like, I don't have children, I don't even know how to teach 5-year-olds, like, that's crazy. But I've been doing it for 2 years. So you kind of just wing it, honestly. But so more opportunities came to me, and I kept taking advantage of them. So I did the Sunday school. I had Basic. Katrina started Vision 2020, and she's like, do you want to be on the ministry team? And I was like, heck yeah. So did that, and now I'm doing the teen ministry. But it's every opportunity that has been presented to me, I've taken it, because I'm seeking first the kingdom, and I'm assuming that all the rest will be added to me. And I honestly, not trying to brag, but I think my life is pretty awesome right now. So if you get presented with an opportunity to do something with the kingdom, pray about it, figure it out. But if you have the bandwidth and you don't feel like you're like I've been asked to do things, and I'm like, I literally can't because I'm involved in so many other things. Like, take that with a grain of salt, you know. But pray about it and just do it. It's as simple as, like, not caring what people think of you when you pray out loud. Like, throughout the whole prayer week, PC was saying, like, if you're here, you're praying out loud. And I get attacked all the time saying that my prayers are stupid and that they're not working. And I know, I'm like, shut up, shut up. But ultimately, if you've never spoken at any kind of prayer meeting, if you even say, because it's literally something that I have to constantly work on, and you're like, God, thank you for being awesome. And you say that publicly, if you've never spoken, the people who love you are like, yeah, God, you're awesome! Like, people go nuts. Like, if you've not seen that, you need to go to a prayer service, just be like, Jesus, I love you. And everybody's like, yeah, God, you're awesome! Like, we're so excited that you just spoke. And it's true. Nobody cares what you say. As long as you're speaking and you're not speaking death, they're like, you're awesome! Like, this is the greatest day ever. So even like Monday night, I am taking a winter class and I have like multiple quizzes and tests to do like almost every day. And I'm like, okay, I should probably do this word about not worrying because this is the testimony of my life. And I was like, no. I had to physically leave work early because I had so much stuff to do because I started panicking throughout the day. I'm like, it's due by midnight. I'm like, I'm not gonna get it done. And I did homework for literally 6 hours and freaking out that I'm not gonna get it by the deadline. And then the last like 10 questions of this test, I'm like, oh wow, I'm actually gonna get done by like 10:30, which is normally when I go to bed. And I was like, God, please just give me 10 questions that I don't have to look up and that I just know. And he's like, okay. So I'm like, wow, I know all the answers to these questions. And my brain was like totally dead. But it was so funny because he's like, why are you worrying? Like, your word's gonna be about worrying and you're freaking out about a test that you literally had a revelation about 5 years ago about how you shouldn't be worrying about tests. And I'm like, you're so right. And it's something that's gonna constantly attack you because anxiety is like the number one mental illness. And it's something that you constantly have to be fighting, constantly reminding, like cursing it out. Like, you have no place here, for real. I know that I'm seeking the kingdom first, and that's what my path is. So if anything comes against me in that path, be gone. So if you're worrying about your needs, you can always look at Philippians 4:19. And my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of his glory in Christ Jesus. If birds have to fly south for the winter and like uproot themselves with all their families, imagine that you have to pick up all your kids and move down south for every winter. Like, if they are provided more, even than Solomon, how much more will you be provided for? They don't worry about anything. Birds, plants, they're like, we're just gonna be here. Just be you. You don't have to do anything. You shouldn't be worrying about whether or not your life is going the right way. If you're pursuing God and you're pursuing his kingdom, your life is going the right way. So, that's my word. Also, love you guys. You guys rock.
Thank you. Woo, she made it look so easy. And I like to talk, and I'm really nervous right now. So I got this. I got it. So I will condense it. Yes. So most of you heard Frank speak last week, and he touched on very, very little of the trials that we face. Like, you have no idea. I've said it to those of you who know our whole testimony. I've said it time and time again. To know our whole testimony, we would have to write a book, right? And you will one day hear the full testimony. But to sum it up as best as possible, Frank and I, again, for those of you that don't know, we met when we were super young. We were just teenagers. So all of those trials, we were together in those trials. It was him and I the whole entire time since we were young. So one of the biggest trials that I had to face was when I lost my mom suddenly. I was 18, and it was the worst thing that ever happened. It was unexpected. It was tragic. It was just horrible. And when that happened, instantly anxiety, it's funny Nicolette mentioned that, not just nervous like this anxiety, like debilitating, like life-altering anxiety just attacked me. And just lie after lie after lie after lie just started attaching itself to me. And a couple of months after that, 9/11 happened, and obviously my accent, we're not from here. So we were still living downstate at the time. So between what had happened with my mom and then just a couple of months after that, what had happened, it was horrible. So I had struggled with like post-traumatic stress disorder. I was terrified to get in an elevator. I wouldn't drive on a bridge. I wouldn't drive in a tunnel. I just hated crowded places. Like everything just felt like it was suffocating me. So I went to different doctors. I went on medication. None of it helped. And it became, as sad as it sounds, it became a way of life and it became acceptable to me. And years and years down the line, Frank and I ended up getting married. We lived in Staten Island at the time, and then we just prayed to get out of there. It just wasn't like a life for us. We knew some people here. We knew Nova and Kristen. I had family not too far from here, so God led us here. And I honestly thought that us moving here and moving away from like the chaos and the memories and the reminders of everything that I went through was just gonna magically, everything was gonna be perfect, and that was not the case at all. We moved here and it was the exact opposite. We had trial after trial after trial after trial, from Frank having no job, from us having no money, like zero money. Frankie was a baby at the time. And then just not realizing why we even came here. We just questioned why'd we come, why'd we do this, and still getting attacked in the meantime. And we were saved. I should have actually said that when my mom passed away, Frank and I became saved. We got saved at 18 and 19 years old. So we were living here, and we were sewing and sewing and sewing, doing so much for other people, and just like getting taken advantage of, and just more trials coming and more trials coming. And it was just like, it was horrible at times. I struggled with infertility issues, getting and staying pregnant. I had someone speak over me that the reason why I wasn't getting pregnant was probably a blessing, because we couldn't afford kids anyway. So those are the things that people told me. So now, of course, I know that was just, of course, a total lie, because we didn't believe that, and we just kept persisting and kept going and kept going. And it wasn't until, and I should also say, I had tried in the past to get off of medicine, because I knew it didn't help me. I just didn't. I couldn't deal with what had happened in the past, and I just couldn't let it go. So we were going from different church to different church when we first moved here, and then we came here. We ended up coming here. I knew the girls from our homeschool program, and Kristen and Nova had actually started coming here, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. So we came to like support them on a Wednesday night, and we never left. So it wasn't until we came here that I started hearing the voice of God, and I just started hearing that this was not a medical thing, it was a spiritual thing that I was going through. And I just kept praying about that and praying about that. Now, I had tried to get off medicine in the past, and it was just one little, one pill that I took that everyone said, oh, it would help, and it never helped. And it was the worst experience of my life. If any of you have gone through that, I sympathize 100%. Getting off any medicine for that like stays with you. It is the worst experience ever. So I kept hearing that, and I just kept hearing God telling me, because that's another one. If any one of you that know me, I really am like a tough cookie inside of this. So part of my issue was that I was not submissive. Because I was from a single parent household, then I lost my mom, and I had to just grow up and do things. I was the type of person that always said, no, I got it, it's okay, I can do it. And the problem was, I was like that with God too. I was not being submissive, and I wasn't having that intimacy with him, because I had that mentality, like, oh no, I got it, when really I did not. And again, if you knew the full story of everything Frank and I went through, if we did not have Christ at the center of our marriage, no marriage would have withstood what we went through. None. It's like impossible. And it was the exact opposite. Like Frank said last week, devil 0, Frank 1. Really, that was like such a testimony in itself, because our marriage just got better, just got stronger, just kept going and going and going to the point where we counsel people on their marriages. So anyway, I get that. I know I have to wrap it up soon. I get that we start coming here, and I just start getting that, like that feeling of knowing that I need to start being submissive to God. I wasn't doing it, and I knew it. And I started hearing that this was a spiritual issue that I was dealing with. It was not a medical thing. I never had it until that happened. So I started praying about it, and probably, I can't believe this was almost 2 years ago, or 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago. We were at church on a Wednesday night, and Pastor Chris was discussing specifically things about anxiousness, about depression, about stuff like that. And he said something specific, like, if you think that medicine, now anything I say is a word for me. It's nothing, like I don't down medicine if someone needs it, has nothing, this was my word. So he specifically said something along the lines, like if you're looking for things to replace or to like fill something or to it's never gonna work, it's never gonna work. So, and he specifically mentioned that. So that to me was a confirmation of what I kept thinking and feeling and thinking and feeling. So I said, okay, I'm gonna try this again, even though it was the worst experience of my life. So I go to the women's conference. This was 2 years ago. I go to the women's conference, really like ready to give it all. I said, I'm done. I was at that point in my life where I knew I had to admit that I can't do everything by myself. I don't always have it, you know? So I went to the women's conference. Now, in addition to this, another thing that I never admitted to somebody is that even though I was a Christian from the time I was a teenager, the whole spiritual realm and everything like falling out in the spirit, I struggled with. I never experienced it. I found it. I just struggled with it. But I never told anybody. So I go to the women's conference, and I go the first day up in the front, and I'm worshiping, and I am ready. I went on a mission. I said, I'm done. I can't do this by myself. I'm admitting it. So just as worship was ending, now I know, I didn't know at the time, I was still up there. I wasn't going to my seat. I was not done. So I was up there, and Margie comes up to me and starts praying. Mindy's behind me. Again, I didn't know. I think a couple of people there. And she barely even touched me. Now, this was one of the issues that I had, was falling out in the spirit, and I never admitted it to anybody. Margie barely even touched me, and within seconds, I was down on the floor. I would never, as much as I talk to people and I'm very sociable, I would never do something like that if it wasn't legit. So I was down on the floor, and I was like, I had no idea. It was the most peaceful experience I have ever, since my mother passed away, the most peaceful experience that I ever had in my life, just to be vulnerable to Christ, and just to be, just to say, you know what, I can't do this by myself. It's okay for me to admit that I can't do everything, because I was so used to saying, I got this. So even though it was peaceful, but I was bawling my eyes out at the same time. So it was a weird experience. So that was the first thing that happened. And then days after that, I totally didn't even realize that I hadn't even been taking the medicine for those couple of days, and I experienced nothing, not one single withdrawal from that medicine. So now I'm not going to stay here and tell you that there are not days where the enemy tries to remind me of things that I went through and remind me of things that I carried for so many years, but I know how to handle it now. And if I don't, I know who I can go to be like, you know what, I had a really horrible day, horrible things so like, I guess what I want to do, I just want to encourage everybody, I know I have to finish up, encourage everybody that, number one, we can't always do it by ourselves. As much as I'm like fantastic at doing it most of the time, I can't, I really can't, and I could admit it now. And if you are not, Frank touched on intimacy with God, I would have not experienced that if I would have not needed that intimacy, and if I would have not opened up and said, you know what, I need to be intimate, I need to be vulnerable to you, I need you, I need the help. So I'm just encouraging everybody to just seek that intimacy, because once that happens, I can go on and on forever. The blessings that came to me and my family, I cannot even tell you how much we were blessed just from just from me saying I can't do this and just being intimate with God and just letting it go. The blessings just kept coming and coming, and the attacks too, but we knew how to deal with it and we knew how to go back at it. So, yes. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tim, my wife Rebecca, my son Anthony over there, if we haven't met. I used to go to this church 9 years ago. And yeah, I've been in the church my whole life, actually. My dad's a pastor, and I got saved when I was 9. But I got saved when hey. Sorry, Mark just taking a picture of me. So I got saved when I started going to this church. Oh, white lines, my bad. I got saved when I started going to this church because my eyes were open to the revelation of sonship. I saw everything that I was lacking and couldn't see before. This year has been a big year for my wife and I, and son. We moved from the city, like I said, and it's a big deal. Some of you might know, some of you might not know. Our son has autism, and so big moves like this is a big deal. So we were trying to help him through that, and I was blessed, and I'm working from home, and all these big things were happening. We're coming back to our church. My wife started homeschooling because we had a huge situation where our son was actually being physically abused in the school, and so we were just having this mass chaos in our life, and we were like, well, we need to do something. And I went to, I think I told this the last time, and we need to do something. So I went to my boss, and I basically said, I need to do something. I want to work remote. And they were like, you can work remote. And like I said, the last time, that was a huge deal. I'm the only person in our whole business unit to be working remote, which is a big deal. So we were going through this whole last year. Well, fast forward to January 1st, I'm not going to steal Frank's thunder when the ball dropped, but when the ball dropped, my wife and I, we literally said, we need to kind of shake off everything from the past, shake off everything that we've allowed to, my job is stressful. It's very, very stressful. It's high dollar. It's if I make a mistake, it's a big deal. With Anthony, there's tons of challenges day in and day out. And so we were allowing those things to kind of get in our way, to take time away. There were certain, so we just weren't fully, I felt, fully committed to even church, to even living here at some points in times. I was really, really struggling with what are we doing, and then, like I said, when the ball dropped, everything just started to happen. I started to, my eyes were kind of opened to see that CC, the homeschool group that they're going to, has just been perfect for him. Has literally just been perfect for him. My wife's been getting involved with the women. I've renewed. I've renewed basically saying, I need to get more involved. I need to not allow my work to kind of get in my way. I had no intention whatsoever to say anything I've said up until this point. So, because of that, and I know I'm about to get time stuff. let me just start here. So all that's happened. So January 1st, we renew ourselves. We say, we're definitely 110%. We're going to jump in with both feet. I said, I'm going to jump into the church with both feet again. I have to start committing. I have to start not allowing my work and the world and these just natural things to kind of get in my way. And so I said, forget it, I'm really going to get committed. And then, so we had tons of family in town and everything, and so I wasn't able to make it to the prayer meeting until the last day of the week that they were doing the prayer meeting. And it was like a crazy icy day, so I kind of feel like it kind of counted for 2 days, right? Because there wasn't that. So, all right, so I went to that and immediately I'm in there and I'm praying, and of course, if you know me, I don't love public speaking, but and so I'm just thinking and praying, I should say, and I just kept hearing, there's more, and I'm like, yeah, but I literally just committed, I just made a commitment that I'm gonna do more, and they're like, no, it's more, there's a higher level, and then I started hearing, what have you done that's greater than Jesus? And I said, nothing, because he's Jesus. and then I literally heard John 14:12. It says, truly, truly, I say unto you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also. So I'm like, man, do also. I haven't, no blind eyes this week. No walking on water, none of that this week. So the works I do, he will do also. And greater works than these he will do. Because now I go to the Father. And so I was just like, wait a second, there's a higher level. There's such a higher level. We're not functioning in that higher level. And so I was like, wait a second, how do we obtain that? I want to obtain that. I want to live that. I want to be that high. I want that. That's my promise. That's mine. And so I started, of course, reading various verses. Mark 16:17 says, these signs will follow those that believe, in my name. They will cast out demons. They will speak in new tongues. We're pretty cool with those two. But now all of a sudden it's like they will pick up serpents. Whoa, I don't do that yet. They will drink deadly poison. It will not hurt them. They will lay hands on the sick, and they will recover. There's just a higher level. I just kept seeing it. And in John 14:13 through 14, it says, whatever you ask in my name, I will do, so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. And if you ask anything in my name, I will do it. Matthew 18:19 says, again, I say to you, if two of you agree on earth about anything that you may ask, it shall be done. Oh, I love you. Thank you so much. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Do I have the white? I don't have the white. Do I have the white? Did I have the white? Oh, thank you. Okay. All right. So I'm seeing this higher level. There's a higher level. And I started saying, and I'm completely operations minded. That's what I do for a living. And so I'm like, how? We have to figure this out. I'm not sales. Sales goes, Frank's sales. Frank is sales, where he just says, you got to do it. And then operations says, we got to figure out how to do this. And so I'm sitting here saying, how do we do this? I want to do this. How do we do this? And I started to hear things like glory follows order. It follows orders. You have to seek first the kingdom of God, and then there's an order. So first seek, and then it says two have to agree. So to agree first, there's an order. It says, he who believes in me the works that I do. He that believes, you need to believe. There's an order. And so when we follow that order, the other thing is John 10. If you read John 10, there's the parable of the Good Shepherd. I believe it's called the Good Shepherd. And it's that, and from John 10, a lot of us get the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And a lot of times people attribute that to Satan, but it's actually, if you read it, it's just a shepherd that didn't follow order. He didn't go through the proper gate. And that could be any of us. That doesn't have to necessarily mean that, we don't have to give that one to Satan. That could be us. We should be cognizant of that, I guess. The other thing I kept hearing is sonship gives grace to follow that order. So a lot of times we think of sonship as, it's awesome. And our position, our, who we are, where we are in Christ, it's an amazing position to be in, but that doesn't necessarily mean we can throw the standard out the window. It gives us grace to meet that standard. And so we take on the fruits of the Spirit, and like one of the things I thought of is like when my wife goes into Wegmans and says, I'm just going to run in. And 45 minutes later, I'm like, what is going on with this woman God gave me? So I put on my patience, and when she comes out, I give her a kiss and a smile, and everything's all right. But the other thing is we have a culture, and I know it because I'm in media, that just consumes things, consumes data, consumes media, consumes everything, and so we have preconceived notions about a lot of things, or we just know too much almost. We can consume in 5 minutes what in biblical times probably took 20 years to figure out. Like I can Google YouTube anything I want, or Google whatever I want and get the answer. And so we just kind of have a higher mental state, if you will. And what it does is it just lets a lot more get in the way. And so for me, like, you can't put this on YouTube because I'm about to go into bad territory. My mom, I love her with all my heart, but she is so full of useless information. I love her with all my heart, but she just knows too much. Like she just like when she comes to our house, she's like, we're like, what do you have? Oh, we're gonna have some burgers. And she's like, well, what'd you get ground beef for? Ground beef, over at Sam's Club you can get ground beef for blah 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 blah. And she like just knows pricing and then she like, it's like, Mom, we're coming down. She's like, don't take 61 blah 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 blah. Yeah. She's just filled with a lot of information that just doesn't matter. Where it's like, Mama, we're coming. I'll get there. Don't worry. And I think a lot of times that higher mental state kind of gets in the way. And so like another one I thought of was miracle pools. Like when we came back, we heard there were miracle pools, and immediately again operations minded. I'm like, how does that even work? Like, does the carpet get wet? Do people, is there like a place you take your shoes off before you, or do you have to really faith means you go right, do your jeans get wet? Are there towels at that? And you just kind of think naturally, that's a natural thought, right? But what should happen is you say those signs shall follow those that believe. That's our mindset. So we need to take off, who cares if my feet are going to get wet, or who cares about the logistics? We're just going to go for God. And so I heard that. And then it was agreement dictates success was another one. And we see that from the verse I already quoted, that if two of you agree on earth, that it shall be done. But Jesus had a issue with agreement. In Mark 6, you can read 1 through 5, and it says that Jesus went, this is when he goes into Nazareth where he's raised, and it says Jesus went from there and came into his hometown, and his disciples followed him when the Sabbath came, and he began to teach in the synagogue, and many listeners, a bunch of people, were astonished, saying, where did this man get these things? What is the wisdom given to him? Such miracles performed at his hands. And then there was like one guy in the group that was like, dude, that's my carpenter. He goes, wait a second. Like, this guy made me an end table. Like, what's going on? Like, and it's like, and you see it come in, it's like, is he not the carpenter? Is this not Mary's son? Like, is this, do we not know his brothers and his sisters? Like, and they took offense of him. And it says, and Jesus said the prophet was not without honor except in his hometown and among his own relatives and in his own household. And he could not do miracles, couldn't do no miracles except that he laid hands on a few sick people and healed them. It was all in their minds. And where do we get stuck? Like, do we say this is that not Bob's brother? No good could come from Bob's brother. Like, where do we get stuck? Is it like the heavyset guy that sits in the back? Like, what does he have to tell me? Like, what wisdom does he have? Like, when Pastor says jump, he just kind of shimmies a little, awkwardly. Pastor doesn't know the struggle of jiggle. Like, he doesn't. That's why he's okay with saying jump, because stuff jiggles on me, Pastor. So, I just spilt all over myself. Okay. So the battle. So it says the battle is in the mind. Pastor preaches that. Who else that week? That pastor was like, whenever you think something outside the Spirit, just pray in tongues. And he said it so nonchalantly, and then I spoke like 7 words of English that whole week, because we don't allow. It's not like, I kind of like, at least for me, it rang true. It's not bad thoughts. It's thoughts. It's not like sin. It's not like I don't have I don't like have issues with like lust or like thinking things I shouldn't be thinking. It's just I'm thinking things that I shouldn't be thinking. Like, I should be thinking this way, and I'm thinking kind of this way, and I feel like that kind of stumbles us. I feel like that's what's keeping us from getting maybe to the next level. Okay. And so the battle's in the mind. I said that. I said Pastor preaches that. And then the key is renewing our minds. Setting our minds on things above, not on earthly things. Taking every thought captive. Staying in his presence. Staying in spirit. Peter was one example, again, that came to mind. Peter is called. He's a fisherman. He's fishing. Jesus says, I'm going to make you a fisher of men. And we see in John 21, we see where Jesus, he walked with Jesus, all the miracles, all the wisdom, praying with him. I mean, what would that be like? Like, I mean, it's like yeah, that would be amazing. And so he sees all that, and he's privy to all that, and Jesus dies. The resurrection happens. He has appeared twice now, and Peter goes, I'm going fishing. He goes, he was a fisherman. He was going to be a fisher of men, and he says, I'm going fishing. He's going back. He's going back to where he was comfortable. He was going back to where it was normal. It was going back to where maybe it started. But he was going back. And that's just not where he needed to be. And so it says in John 21, it says, Simon Peter said to them, I'm going fishing. And they said to him, we will also come. And they went and got into the boat, and that night they caught nothing. But when day was now breaking, Jesus stood on the beach, yet the disciples did not know it was Jesus. So Jesus said to them, children, do you have any fish? They answered, no. And he said to them, cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find a catch. And I don't know if you know how boats work, but this side and that side are kind of the same thing, because it's just like, yeah. So you understand what I mean? Like, if I cast it this way, basically I'm casting it that way. So it's kind of foolish, but yet they did it. And he said, so they cast. I'm sorry, I'm just messing everything up. So they cast and then were not able to haul it in because of the great number of fish. And I'm wondering what Peter's thinking. Like, is that starting to feel familiar? Because when he was called, that's exactly what happened. They were being pushed. Jesus was doing his thing, not like Abraham and Sarah last week, but he was doing his thing, and he was preaching and teaching, and the crowd was pushing him, and so he got into the boat, and he said, go out a little further, and he was like, we've been out all night, there's no fish, and he's like, they were like, all right, but they were like, okay, we will, and they did, and they got a bunch of fish. So I was wondering if, does it start to feel familiar for him? And then the rest of the text says, therefore the disciple whom Jesus loved, John, isn't he something? Sometimes I want to flick him in his forehead. It's so annoying. The one that laid on his chest and stuff. Easy, John. All right. And it said, that disciple which Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. So when Simon Peter heard it was the Lord, he put on his outer garments, for he was stripped for work, and threw himself into the sea. But the other disciples came in the little boat, which kind of is funny because, again, the right, left, if it's a little boat. And for they were not far from land, but about 100 yards away, dragging a full net. And when they got to land, they saw charcoal and fire already laid, and fish placed on it, and bread. And Jesus said, bring some of the fish that you caught. Simon Peter went up and drew the net from the land, and there was 153. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. You weren't meant for fishing, Peter. That's the essence of this. You weren't meant for. Peter was confused outside of presence. He was so used to being in Jesus' presence that when the resurrection happened and Jesus was no longer present, he went back to what he was comfortable with. And I feel like a lot of times with the supernatural or with healing or with whatever, anything we're kind of striving for, it's very easy to kind of go back to where comfort is, to where it's just easier. It's just easier. Go back to the natural. Go back to and stay in the natural. But it was some of the things that I wrote is you weren't meant for fishing. You were meant to be a fisher of men. Well, don't forget, right after that, Peter says, or Jesus has the conversation with Peter, do you love me? Tend my sheep. Do you love me? Tend my sheep. Do you love me? Tend my sheep. And so, again, just kind of reminding him of his purpose and reminding him of who he is. But I just think there's more. Like I said, that word that I got, there's more. There's so much more. There's such a higher level that we could be operating on. There's just more. Like I know a lot of times like you hear things or you think things that are just silly. And I have those too, but it's a lot of the things in the Bible are silly. Like throw it on the right side. That's silly. Let me spit on this and put that's silly. Like things are silly. Like it just doesn't make sense, and yet it works, and because it's obedience, and it's following that order that I was talking about earlier. And so, yeah, I can't let my mind win was another one. There are eyes that need to be opened. There's people in bondage that need me. There are lives that need to be changed, that need us. They need us. We have to tend his sheep. Jesus showed us how he wanted his sheep tended. When he was on the earth, he showed us how he wanted his sheep tended. And all he did all day was miracles. He was wisdom and miracles. And I feel like a lot of times we just get, I don't know, there's more. There's just more. I just know there's more. Couple crazy things that I thought of that I wrote down was a life flight, like landing pad over there. Like I just saw that, like a life flight, like emergency. Like I just see that. Like I see like our church becoming like it was again, it's weird and silly. I don't care. You don't have to like it. I love it. Like I just saw like people getting into ambulances and being like, bring me to Robinson Hill Road, right? Because it's like Lords or Wilson, not Robinson Hill Road. Do you know that one? Just go up there, and like that kind of silly stuff. I literally saw KJ and Emily creating like folders on their computer called like Blind Eyes Open, and like just having multiple videos like lame man walking, like, and then it was weird. Like I literally saw them kind of talking back and forth and being like, yeah, but so these ones are blind eyes completely opening, but this person only had astigmatism. Like, is that still kind of the same thing? Like, do we put it in the same folder, or like, how does that work? Again, it's silly. It's stupid, but there's more. There's so much more. There's so much more we're not tapping into. Let's tap into it. Let's tap into it together.
So, did I hear you say you're not a good public speaker? Did I hear Nicolette say that she felt like she was going to puke because she was nervous? These are the funniest, easiest people. It's like amazing. Wow, I thought it's worth a little recap. Like Nicolette, she was really talking about seeking first the kingdom of God. She was like, and how she said, you worry isn't going to help you. Let's not forget these things about how this simple young girl who didn't know anything about Jesus, what'd she say? Just a few months into it, she was like, I was just getting to know who Jesus was. It's like, but she was asked to do something, and she says, do what's asked of you. Did you hear that? She was like simple. She says, I've never done anything. I don't have any experience. I don't even know. How am I going to lead people? I don't even know what I'm doing. And she said, I just did what was asked of me. And what happened is she got on the fast track, and she matured quickly. I mean, you think 5 years. Look at that woman. 5 years in Christ. Wow, that's powerful. And then I was thinking about Erica, how beautiful it was when she was saying, trials. And we sat with her the other night at their house with her and Frank and laughed our heads off. Oh my gosh, you ever get a chance to sit with them and hear their story? It's so terrible. It's so terrible. I just started laughing. And you remember last week, Frank's up here and he goes, you don't know what love is. Remember he said that to me? Well, it was over there that she said that to him because he goes, I love you. When they were first dating and stuff, and she goes, you don't know what love is. She put him under a trial. And you'll have to hear his testimony sometime. Oh, it's so funny. But I was sitting there listening, but they had some really serious, brutal difficulties that they were pushing through. And at times they felt abandoned. At times they felt alone. At times they felt claustrophobic, and all these anxieties were coming up inside. And it was like sitting there listening to this, and I said, where was the help? It was like there was no help. They were just like adrift. And they were at a place where everybody was coming and staying, and everybody was asking them for help, and there was no appreciation and all these problems. And yet in the middle of that, she finally said, God, I can't do it. She was the doer of her family. She was the doer of her circle. She was the one who says, I can do it. Come on, I got this. Even though I don't have any money, I'll help you pay for that. You know, and so she was that person, but she came to the end. And I think that we all got to hear that message, that even though we're sons, there are areas in our lives where we've been trained to trust knowledge or the flesh. And we got to come to the end in those places that aren't anointed. They're not God-made. They're human-made places. They're dead ends. They don't lead to life. And I think we have to hear that. We need to come to the end of that and say, God, I can't. I need you. And there's still a place, even though we're anointed, we're sons of God, we got the Holy Ghost, we can push through anything. There's areas in our lives that we haven't sorted out yet. And in those places, we got to say, here I am, God, help me. It was just a couple weeks ago, I was up front at church, and they were leading worship, and I felt God calling me higher. And it almost seemed crazy. I'm thinking, God, I'm trying to get people to come to here, and now you're calling me over there. And I said, okay, you're God, I'm not. And I went up and got on my knees. I said, because I'm going to need your help. I want to go there. I want to go there. Do you want to go there? Well, then there's a bowing of the knee inside. There's something in there that says, I don't care who sees me. I don't care what's going on. I'm coming to the end of myself. And then a one little touch, and bang, it's changed. Phobias leave. All that anxiety is gone. Need for drugs and pills. It's amazing. I mean, it's a miracle of miracles. It's the most. You could never look at Erica and know she's been through trials. The woman you're like, you guys are amazing. It's like, I mean, I don't know how we got you, but thank God. Thank God. I mean, just like the love that pours out of you. Erica, it's like an amazing, she is a treasure trove of grace and care and love and mercy, and it just flows out of her like crazy, except if you mess with her kids. And anyway. Yeah, no, it really is a testament to God. I was even saying about Jeanette today. So, you know, Jeanette, all that heart surgery, all the problems from your youth, the little child, all the way through, the trials, the tribulations, the problems, everything she went through. But then somewhere in there, she got faith in God, and the miracles started happening. You can't look at that woman and see the trials. You are the most normal person I've ever seen who's gone through all that garbage. She doesn't act weird. She's not strange. She's not deformed or disfigured or crippled. Her soul is whole. She's not a worrier, a doubter, a fretter, a what if, and oh boy, and what's going to happen. She doesn't have any of those problems. You're one of the happiest people I know. We got to hear these testimonies. I mean, Erica, we can't tell. You walk around with joy on your life. What's that? Yeah. Yeah, no, it's so beautiful. And to know the anxieties got backhanded by Jesus. You know, he took and stripped that off you. And then, gosh, Tim, I think that really, I can hear the minister in you. I hear years under your dad in the ministry in that church. Your stories about, you know, the end table and all this, you just have a great way you have a very great way of putting things. It hits home. It really helps us to see it. It brings it down to life. It's real. Thank you very much. He said some fantastic things. Tim was talking about, you can do greater things. Imagine God saying to you, have you done greater things? Well, then what? You don't really. I'm thinking, what a question God's asking you. Get the ambulance coming up the hill, brother. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, let it be. Do you know, thank God, when I was over in South Africa with Kubus van Rensburg, they would drive ambulances to the church, lots of them. They'd pull up, and they'd be loading all these people on mats in an area is about as big as this whole room. There were mats all over the floor, and all these people laying there. And it was off on the left side of the church, and he'd be preaching away. He's just going. It's almost like they weren't there. It was just part of the crowd. And there's people, nurses and people with a drip going into them, keeping them alive. And he just didn't even pay any attention to it. Just preaching and ministering to people. Then all of a sudden he dropped the mic and go over there and start pulling them off the mats, like boom, 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 boom. And the ambulance workers, they were so used to him getting them healed, they knew where to bring them. Isn't that awesome? That's awesome. So it's already been done in our sight. So we already have an example. So I agree with that vision. We agree. We agree with that vision. Lord, strengthen us, show us how to come to the end of it and trust God. But he said, make a way for greater things. And then he talked about commitment. He had to raise his commitment level so that he could enter into the purpose of God. And I think that's a simple saying, is it not? Raise your commitment level. Yeah, just make a decision. Raise your commitment level. God wants to meet you. If you raise your commitment level, he'll meet you there. Wow. Don't get distracted. He says, I didn't have problems with lust and thoughts. He was saying about, I love the way you put that. He says, I just had thoughts. Not ones I shouldn't be thinking about, but ones I shouldn't be thinking about. That's good. I like that. That sounds familiar. And but that is so simple. That is simple, but it's powerful. It's powerful. Push the thoughts aside. Get busy with God. Do greater things. And then he said, there is just more. Quiet your mind. There's more. Thank God for all these people. Thank you very much. We just really appreciate all that. Thank you very much.